Hello and welcome to a new episode of our program, The World Today, where we take a look at what's heading on the main banners of the newspapers, all of the regional, the local and the international newspapers, and what's happening across the world during the past 24 hours through the world of the press, and with a further analysis with our guest in the studio this afternoon, Dr. Khalid Rifat, a political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us on The World Today. Of course, today everybody is talking about what's happening in Egypt, whether it's the local newspapers, of course, with the unfortunate attacks that took place on St. Peter's Church in Abbasiyah district. And Al-Ahram Online was talking about Egypt's interior ministry, who accuses the Muslim Brotherhood of the involvement in Sunday's church bombing, and that the cell involved in Sunday's attack on the Coptic church had received directives from the Muslim Brotherhood organizations leaders residing in statement, according, of course, to the Ministry of Interior, which was announced on Monday. Of course, by now everybody knows who the person or the 22-year-old boy who had bombed himself with an explosive device inside the church, which had resulted in at least 24 deaths and 49. I know that the numbers have been rising since Sunday up until today. I'm not going to talk to you about how did this boy actually manage to enter the church and carrying explosive belts, or where the security apparatus was at that point, but I'm going to tell you about what are we facing here with all these details and the transparency between the Interior Ministry and the people on who could be behind it, who's plotting, who's giving logistic and financial support to these terrorists in Egypt.
Let me start. This is the first time that the Ministry of Interior accused in person, in name, by name, Qatar did it, or Qatar sponsored, or Qatar did something like that. This is, I think it's a milestone in our fight with terrorism. Right now, we're saying this country is against us. This country is supporting terrorists. This country is sending terrorists to Egypt. So I think, and I expect, there's something should be done against Qatar.
But are they really pinpointing at Qatar, or are they pinpointing at the Muslim terrorist brotherhood who are living in Qatar?
Because, what is the difference?
Well, the difference would say, well, in London or in Britain, many Muslim Brotherhood organization leaders are there, and nobody's accusing Britain for supporting terrorism.
Tell you what is the difference between if I attack you by myself, or if an island or safe place for you to stay in my country, to plot in my country, to support the terrorists that are attacking me. What is the difference?
The difference is that if you are pinpointing, not that I'm disagreeing with you, but the point is, if you just to speak on really what's happening on the ground, if you really want to talk about diplomatic strained relations between two countries based on such things, well, if you are blaming a country, you're meaning that the government is providing financial.
Yes, it is. Qatar government, the government and the press of Qatar should be blamed for this and should be punished for this. Something should be done. Right now, what is the difference? As I said, most the Muslim Brotherhood in Qatar right now, all we are sentenced to many years in jail in Egypt, and we asked Qatar to send them to Egypt, and they didn't do that. They refused to do that. They're keeping them there, attacking us, plotting us, and destroying our economy. Remember what Jazeera is doing for 3 days right now? They are sending rumors, sending lies.
They've been doing that for 5 years, actually, not just 3 days. It was.
I'm talking about this accident. Yeah. This accident says that the policemen are fake it and whatever they say. All these are rumors. I think it's time to take an action.
Yes, and that's why talking about the action, the speed in which the Ministry of Interior, and which the President the next day himself actually came out and announced the name of the person who had committed this very unfortunate, cruel crime, with his age, where he came from, the speed that the investigations are coming out regarding this incident. Is this an indication of really understanding what is happening on real ground in Egypt, how people are very angry at the moment? All Egyptians, we're not talking about Christian Muslims, we're talking all Egyptians are really angry and possibly very much fed up with these continuous attacks, and they do need to know what happened and what will the government and the country do to stop such incidents.
Let me start from what you stopped right now. You said everybody is fed up. So let's go back to what I said from 2 minutes ago. Something should be done. An action should be done against terrorists, against Qatar, against sports, against Turkey. It's not nonsense to stay forever doing nothing, watching these guys destroying our own country and say, oh, this is brothers. No, they are not
Yes.
brothers no more. They are enemies right now.
Exactly. And speaking of what should be done, actually, and that's what the president had urged, not only in his speech during the funeral yesterday, but on several occasions about the amendments of some kind of court rulings and constitution that should be done. Although what I've heard, and we're going to move to Egypt's independence first before we start talking about this issue, because it spoke about the parliament who is to amend the constitution for military courts jurisdiction over terrorism. So the article starts talking about the members of the House of Representatives of the Parliament in Egypt on Monday who had demanded the amendment of the constitution to grant military prosecution jurisdiction over terrorism cases. And that's what many people have been calling on for several years. We've seen hundreds of terrorists being captured and nothing really. I mean, we see the latest guy, Habara, who is...
For 4 years right now.
More than 4 years. I was surprised to know that he was actually a terrorist caught on cases on charges of terrorism from 2006, living very peacefully in a jail that very much considers the regulations of human rights. But many people are calling that something should be done. Some kind of action, quick action, should be done against these people. How far fast do you think that the Parliament could be able to take such action?
2 hours ago, just 2 hours ago,
and we will see actions actually being
just 2 hours ago, the Parliament asked the government to introduce a law for in maximum 30 days that allow to send all the terrorists to the military prosecution
or different court rulings than the ordinary traditional court rulings that take several years.
What is the problem? The problem is you capture all the terrorists and you have all the evidence and everyone. Habara confessed himself that, yes, I killed the soldiers. So what are you doing?
I have no idea.
He
and even this young boy, that is very unfortunate how they play with minds and brainwash young youth. Only 22 years old, and before in 2014 he was captured also
when you play with religion, when you play with religion, you can do anything. You can brainwash anyone with religion and say, oh, this is what God asked for.
Yes.
This is how we go to heaven.
Exactly.
And, and they have no culture at all. Most of them has just primary education. And
it's not just about education. I think they play very much with the psychology of people. They usually would take people that have very special psychological cases, maybe distorted family, very, very, very harsh economics. It's a mixture of, or a package of things.
It's something important too, but most of them are looking for money or looking for how to go to heaven, what God asked us to do. You say, oh, this is jihad. No, this is not jihad. It's not jihad to kill kids, to kill women, to go to church. People are worship God there and just palm yourself there, support yourself there, killing what, 24 right now? 25.
More
today,
than that.
Today is 25 kids and women. This is not jihad.
Yeah, speaking of this kind of amendment, because many people were arguing the fact, Dr. Khalid, that this is already found in the Constitution.
No, it's not.
But they need to actually make this kind of
Let me explain this. Article 204 in the Constitution.
I mean, it's found concerning military people. If you kill soldiers and
it says when you attack military facilities.
Yes.
That's what it said. If it's a civilian like me, go and attack military facilities, you go to a military court. I have no problem with that. The problem is, what about if you go to attack a mosque? What about to attack a church?
But it even wasn't implemented or actually functioned
today,
when it was.
Today, 2 hours ago, the parliament suggests a law that the worship places like mosques and church are considered. I said I considered like military facilities, so we can send terrorists to military courts.
No, but I mean even those who have been attacking military facilities. We have soldiers dying every day, Doctor.
Let me explain this. When you talk to Habara, when you talk about the guys in Sinai, we talk about police. Police are not military. Police is civilian constitution. It's not a military. We should watch the difference.
The military soldiers,
the military soldiers,
of the army.
Those are sent to a military court. But when you attack police, you are sent to civilian courts. But right now, this is a problem.
How about are you with the with what some people are suggesting again on maybe they should have a referendum to ask the Egyptian people to participate and say their opinion, how they do agree or disagree with forming this, or should this go straight to the parliament and the parliament addressing the government? I don't know how many years or months will that take before actually implementing
What
such...
is the saying today that you have 30 days for the government to send a law to the parliament, and the parliament will go ask people to go to pool there and ask them if you accept this or not. And I think 99% of the decisions say, oh, yes, we need
Yes,
this.
absolutely.
We will not allow the terrorists to stay in jail for years and years, eating, feeding them, and doing nothing.
Taking all the rights, as if, yeah. Well, let's go to another story and see how the world is, you know, reflecting on the, or what they believe, or how they think what is happening in Egypt today. The Guardian, Egypt's 3-day of mourning declared after 25 people killed in Cairo's bomb. No one has actually claimed responsibility up until today. It's just the preliminary investigations by the suspects who have been held under custody.
We don't need someone to claim responsibility because we have
but I mean, that's usually what
we got the body right now.
But we have the Moroccan king, the 6th, Mohammed VI, have called President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to express his condolences. We also have
President Putin too.
Yes, the Prime Minister of Greece as well, Belarusian President as well, Alexander Lukashenko as well. He had called in, and of course the whole entire world is condemning these attacks. My question here is that these attacks, these terrorism attacks, they take place everywhere around the world. We see even the most developed countries like France with their very tight security, and how they are not far away from the hands of militants of terrorism. And not only that, but also how fierce and instant to their government reacts to that. They had an emergency period. They had
24 hours.
Yes, they did take a lot of legal actions. I do understand that this is a very long war now, and it's very difficult to have these kind of high security alert on 24/7 basis for a very long time. But speaking about terrorism that has extended the entire world now, what kind of strategies, common visions, some kind of actions that can be taken by the entire world to be able to, you know, put this phenomenon to an end?
First of all, we should define what's terror. We have a big problem to define terror and resistance. What about, let me ask you, what's going on now in Gaza Strip? Is it terrorist or is it resistance to occupation?
And it's very sad because we don't hear people bombing themselves anymore in
Israel is the safest place now in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's the safest place now in the Middle East is Jerusalem. This is something very, very weird because they are the donors of all this. So, problem we should define.
It actually became the safest place since the peace process died a couple of years ago.
No, I think starting with Arab Spring, what's called Arab Spring, I don't like it. Okay, first of all, let's define what's terrorism and what's the resistance.
Yes.
After that, we should put some laws, international laws, about all over the world should enroll it to how to punish any country that's supporting terrorism in another country, that feeding terrorists, that giving logistics to terrorism, and we should punish people too that spread all over the world the ideas of terrorism.
Yeah, but when you're speaking of we, the world should do that, who? The United States, the country
No,
that
hell no,
is
of course
supposedly
no,
said by many people
They are the
funding
ones
terrorism
No,
and
of course.
creating terrorist organizations?
What is the way? The first supporter of terrorism all over the world is US. Everyone knows that because they do what they want. Instead of sending
everybody
armies,
knows this, but nobody is really confessing that face to face and taking an action against it because it's the United States of America.
Yep. No one at all. The only ones that saying that are the terrorism themselves, saying that jihad, not terrorism.
Yes, let's move to another story from the World Bulletin, the situation, the very sad situation that's not very different from what's happening in Egypt. It's also targeting innocent civilians, children and women. The situation in Syria and particularly Aleppo, and the hundreds of thousands actually of civilians that are being killed. There have been so many accusations back and forth saying who is responsible. Of course, the United Nations has been pointing on the Assad's regime for being responsible, while the Assad regime and the Russians, who are of course their allies, are saying, well, no, it's actually Daesh, it is the opposition, it's al-Nusra Front. And then we see in the middle of all these pinpointings and accusations, it's only the innocent lives of people that are being lost. There's a serious humanitarian crisis actually going in Aleppo that is targeting and raising alert to many people. The social media and every now and then the pictures and the images that we see, it's horrifying. And really the United Nations, that's instead of blaming whether Assad or even itself, it should make more serious actions and resolutions to actually support and prevent this humanitarian crisis, which is the aim of the United Nations.
Let me ask you something. Who is the legal regime now in Syria? The legal regime is Assad regime. I know only one regime in Syria, which is the Assad regime. The point is, What is the legal army in Syria? The legal army in Syria is the Syrian Arab Army. Let's put this too. What about the Daesh, the Nusra, whatever you name it? They are terrorists. And what's going on right now is that the Arab army in Syria are liberating Aleppo and kicking out all these terrorists. Some accusation like what you said right now.
They're saying they're burning people alive.
I don't think this happened. Why? Because why the Syrian government should do that? I have been fighting for 5 years. I'm surrounding Aleppo. It's so easy for me to just palm him, to shell him. It's easy. Why I wait for 5 years?
It's so easy for me to leave with all the money and the support
so
I get from
these
allies
lies.
like Russia or
all
China.
lies.
Why don't I just carry my family and move out?
Who?
Why, if those who are against the Syrian regime and President Bashar al-Assad?
So let me ask you this. Why the government think the Syrian army should stay far for 6 years to go inside Aleppo and open door to door and kill people? This is stupid. This would never happen. This is a big lie.
Yes, but why, the reason why we are talking about this is the fact that the UN has not been performing its actual role and its purposes. You don't just condemn or you feel sorry.
Double standards.
You need to take actions,
It's
and you're
double
not.
standards
You
all
would
over the
take
time.
it on Russia for its. You would take it on North Korea. You would take it on Iran
Iraq,
and
Iraq.
Iraq, but you will never take it when it comes to humanitarian aid. This double standard
it's
is
double
really, really
standards
very
everywhere.
strange. And I'm not really sure if the new UN Secretary General is going to be able to do anything any different. But yeah, anyway, let's move to the final article, also still with the bulletin taking us to the United States this time. And White House says that Trump benefited from Russia hacks. And now seems to be that the accusations are very clear between the United States and Russia, but this time concerning the presidential elections of the United States, in which somehow the United States, Obama's office, and Clinton, the rival Democratic Party who had lost the elections, actually blaming Russia for hacking their presidential elections. And I don't understand how far or where this will go, or if this is even logical by all means. But it does seem to be that the situation is very tense. And it does also seem that Trump and Putin are going to have a very much different fate after Trump steps into the White House next month than the kind of strategy applied and relations that Russia and the United States had during the Obama administration during the past 8 years. What do you think?
I'll tell you what happened the day before yesterday, as a spokesman of the White House went out and said, oh, there is some hacking from Russia against the Clinton administration, the Clinton...
and that Clinton was winning by 2.7 million votes?
No,
Where was that number coming from even?
It's a big joke. What's going on is another fight between Democrats and Republicans again, and the Democrats don't say we lost people. People don't like
Democrats,
us.
I don't understand, the war coming from Democrats, what? If in the first place the Congress,
they lost everything.
Everybody was Republican except Obama and his people around him.
And right now they lost the 2 houses and they lost the presidency too. And
that's the first time in history that you actually have a 100% total Republican Party controlling
even the higher
a country.
Court, even the higher court itself, you know, if every post now in the U.S. is controlled by Republicans. So I think I should thank the Democrats and saying go home, don't talk all this crap again. No one believes you. What a joke! It says that hackers, Russian hackers.
And that's why we're really concerned, because the United States, when it comes to elections in the whole entire world, they're always concerned with human rights, and they always have international monitoring groups. So we're really concerned in this part of the world, the third world countries like ourselves, with that kind of actions, that maybe the entire world should send international monitoring committees to monitor U.S. elections.
Next election, I'll go to America to monitor the...
I think it's only fair to just ensure the safety of the voting process for each and every U.S. citizens.
I don't trust the voting system U.S. I don't trust them. The whole system is corrupted. You can bring whatever you like. The system is very, very complicated and it's very, very corrupt.
Yes. Unfortunately, our time is up. Dr. Khalid Rifat, a political analyst, thank you very much for joining us on The World Today. Our condolences once again to Egypt as a whole. If I always say anything that ever happens, it's always affecting Egypt, and it's always affecting each and every person, whatever his religion is, whatever his political or ethnic background is. Our deep condolences. Of course, God always bless Egypt, and this is a war, and we will be overcoming it. I hope so, inshallah. Thank you very much for watching.